Well, good morning. My name is Annie Milli, and I am Live Baltimore's Executive Director, and I am incredibly pleased to welcome you to Live Baltimore's annual State of the City Market event. As most of you know, clapping. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Well, as most of you know, Live Baltimore has been tracking and analyzing Baltimore City's multiple listed home sales since our founding back in 1997. And this event is our opportunity to summarize that data from the full calendar year, to show you the city's hottest neighborhoods by the numbers, and to provide insight into where the market is heading with the help of some expert panelists who I know you can't wait to hear from. Live Baltimore works to grow the city's economy by recruiting new residents, retaining existing residents, and supporting healthy housing markets. And today's event is a very important component of all of that work. I would like to thank Live Baltimore's staff for making this event possible, especially Julie French and Amy Sukup, Live Baltimore's data leads. Yes, thank you very much. Misty Keynes, Live Baltimore's events manager, Jordan Klump, Live Baltimore's business relationship manager, and also Nikta, Susie, Chadres, Jasmine, and our two newest team members, Deandra and Ani, who are also here supporting us this morning. So if you need anything at all, our helpful team will be glad to assist you. I would also like to thank Coppin State University for serving as our host this morning. This is the very first event that we have ever hosted at Coppin, and we are so glad to be here showing off this beautiful campus. I know, it's so beautiful. Every time I'm over here, I'm just impressed by what they're doing, and I hope that you all are as well. And I don't know if I'm doing that or not, but sorry. Finally, I just want to thank a couple of special guests who are here with us. Thank you to Deputy Mayor Justin Williams, who is here representing the mayor's office in the back. Thank you to Sean Davis, the chair of Baltimore City's Planning Commission. Sean looks shocked that he's getting a shout out, but he's a very important person. And thank you also to Al Ingram, the CEO of the Greater Baltimore Board of Realtors, who's joining us here this morning with members of his board. Thank you so much for being here. On all of your chairs, you should have a copy of our 2023 market statistics that include data for every single one of Baltimore City's now 279, yes, it used to be 278, and now it's 279 neighborhoods. If you do not have a copy of those materials, grab one of our staff and they'll be happy to give you a packet. We're going to be walking through the highlights of those reports this morning, and we're going to also be sharing a lot of extra information that's not included, especially at the neighborhood level. So let's check the clicker and let's get started, shall we? Now, before I flip to this first slide, I want to give you all, I think we're supposed to say a trigger warning. So I want to give you all a trigger warning. We're going to really rip the Band-Aid this morning on some less than rosy market news. So perhaps we all want to take a deep breath right now. It's going to be okay. And I'm going to promise you all that this presentation is going to end better than it starts. If you joined us last year or watched the recording, you'll recall that 2022 was a tale of two markets. We began the year on the tail end of the best housing market in a decade. And although the market turned mid-year, 6 months of COVID-era interest rates softened our losses in 2022 and left us with a still near record-setting year. This was not the story of 2023. Over the next few slides, we're going to see the impact of continuously high interest rates and extremely tight inventory on the city and its region's markets. This impact was most notably felt in the number of purchases, which took a dive from pandemic highs in 2023. Declines were seen throughout the Baltimore and Washington metropolitan regions, which you see here. And notably on this slide, Baltimore City had the smallest decline on the board, which we are thankful for. Thanks to fewer purchases, the amount buyers invested in the market also declined by double digits in Baltimore City and all surrounding counties. Washington, D.C., the highest price area on the board, saw the biggest drop of all. In stark contrast to double-digit gains that we have become accustomed to in recent years, the median price of homes changed by less than 8% throughout the region. Most counties posted modest gains, while Baltimore City and its urban neighbor, Washington, D.C., saw modest declines. Homes were also purchased more slowly throughout the region, especially in more rural areas. Although again, here, Baltimore City fared better than nearly all of its peers. Against this softer market context, the number of homes purchased in Baltimore City fell by 18%, or by more than 1,700 homes from 2022. This was the first year with fewer than 9,000 purchases since 2019, and one of only 3 years with fewer than 8,000 purchases in the past decade. Dramatic declines in purchase volume led to less than $2 billion of market investment in the city for the first time since 2020. Consumers spent 20%, or nearly $500 million less on homes than they did in 2022. But I will note a little bright spot here. Although there was also a decline of 18% from the previous 3-year average, this was only one of 5 years in the city's history to exceed $1.8 billion in purchases. And those previous years happened to be 2020 through 2022 and 2005. The economic impact of declining purchase activity was softened by relative price stability. It was the first year since 2015 in which the median price of homes did not rise year over year in Baltimore City. And although I know we all typically like to see growth, this was actually good news for buyers who were facing the least affordable year ever recorded in 2023, according to economists at Redfin. At the close of 2023, Baltimore City was still the most affordable area for buyers in the metro region. Baltimore County, our closest price neighbor, saw its median price rise to $332,000 in 2023. Howard County, the most expensive county in the region, rose to a median of $555,000. And despite falling slightly from 2022, Washington, D.C.'s median remained a whopping $627,000. So if you're ever wondering why Baltimore is a good deal, those numbers right there give you an idea. Purchase speed slowed modestly in 2023, adding an average of 4 days over the previous year. Although slower than 2022, this is one of the few areas where we retained improvement against the previous 3-year average. We always get a lot of questions about investors in the market, and I can tell you that investors continued to impact the market in 2023, while owner-occupant or home buyer interest remained very strong. The numbers of homes purchased with traditional mortgages, most likely by home buyers, dropped by 6% over the previous year and previous 3-year average. The health of the market was relatively stable after 2022 posted the highest percent of standard sales that we've seen in over a decade. Standard sales exclude properties in distress, such as foreclosures and bank-owned homes. Against the 3-year average, the percent of standard sales remained stable. Now, I know you've all been closely tracking the state budget presentations, and if you have no doubt become familiar with the term rebasing. And so I offer you this morning that a similar post-pandemic rebasing is needed in our interpretation of the market. So for just a moment, join me in pretending that the pandemic didn't happen. Let's just cross it out for a minute. If we remove the pandemic's boom years and compare 2023's market data against 2017 to 2019, the 3 years before COVID rocked our economy, our data tells a very different story. So here you see activity in the market. And despite a still low number of purchases, we see more than 20% growth in market investment since the pre-pandemic period. We also here see growth in market demand, as evidenced by I would say staggering increase in the city's median price and a dramatic drop in homes days on market. That's a 44% increase over the pre-pandemic period in terms of prices, and a 38% decline in terms of days on market, and down is what we want to see in that measure. We also see improved health in the market, as evidenced by more finance transactions and a notably higher percentage of sales that are standard. And yet, if we accept the market that we have, which we all have to do, I'm pleased to share that there were many positive stories in our individual neighborhoods in 2023. First, 242 neighborhoods, that's more than 93% of the 260 neighborhoods that include housing, and just one fewer than last year, experienced purchases in 2023. 32 neighborhoods saw 50 to 100 homes purchased, while 11 saw 100 or more, and those 11 are in the darkest purple on your screen. 85 neighborhoods achieved purchase prices within $50,000 of the city's median. Okay, big reveal coming, so I know everybody wants to get their cameras out for this. These are the hottest neighborhoods, you guys. So we're always asked to share what are the hottest neighborhoods of the year. And if you've heard me give this presentation before, you know that we always answer this question in three ways. The first way that we answer the question is, where were the most homes purchased? For 2023, the 10 neighborhoods with the most purchase activity, which are shown in purple and listed on the left, are largely carryovers from last year. However, South Baltimore and Upper Fells Point dropped off the list. Frankfurt returned to the list from 2021, and McElderry Park was a new 2023 addition. Please note here that sales volume is always dependent on inventory, and this is why Canton, a neighborhood with more housing than nearly any other place in Baltimore, is going to almost always nab that top spot. The second way to describe the city's hottest neighborhoods is to look at where buyers paid the most for their homes. And so most of us are going to recognize the neighborhoods featuring our grand historic estates up north, as well as some along the waterfront on the top of this list. However, what we're most excited about is that Madison Park in West Baltimore is an exciting newcomer to the top 10 in 2023. I hear people clapping for Madison Park. You can clap for Madison Park. It's great news. And the final way that we like to quantify the hottest neighborhoods is my favorite, and I believe the most meaningful and accurate. And that's because it answers the question for all price points, independent of a neighborhood's housing density or size. This is where buyers were purchasing homes as quickly as they were listed. For the second year in a row, note that the majority of the neighborhoods highlighted in purple on this map, that's 11 out of 17, are west of Charles Street. And please note also the clear concentration of strength in southwest Baltimore near 10 Hills and Uplands. Now, while not every neighborhood can make the hottest neighborhoods list, many areas bucked trends and posted growth in 2023. Against the city's 18% decline, 75 neighborhoods saw more homes purchased in 2023 than in 2022. A majority of the neighborhoods with an increase in purchase activity, those with an improvement of 25% or more, are west of Charles Street again, and there is a clear concentration in northwest Baltimore. Compared to the city's overall 3% decline in median price, 145 neighborhoods saw prices increase from 2022. Neighborhoods where the median price improved by 10% or more are spread throughout the city. I challenge you to find a pattern here. They also include markets with both detached homes and row houses. And despite homes in the city spending an average of 4 days longer on the market in 2023, 96 neighborhoods saw homes snapped up more quickly than last year. Neighborhoods where the days on market dropped by 10 days or more are also spread throughout the city and highlighted in the darkest purple. And I believe you can see that there is a notable concentration on the northern York Road corridor, which we are very excited to see as well. So in summary, year over year, Baltimore City and its entire metro region saw declines in almost every measure of market strength and health. Purchase volume plummeted to levels not seen since 2014, while thankfully, Baltimore City held up better than most of its neighbors in this measure. Also thankfully, the news may be largely bad, but it's not all bad when we, one, consider a longer market context, including the years before the pandemic, and two, when we look to individual neighborhoods, many of which showed growth over the year. Some economists have described recent years in housing as Goldilocks years. 2020 through 2022 were, by all measures, way too hot. 2023 was unfortunately too cold. And I know that we are all very curious if 2024 will be just right. And while I don't have a crystal ball to tell us that, I can share the larger economic factors that are boding well for the city. First, Baltimore City is primarily a first-time buyer market. Based on Live Baltimore survey data, we estimate that between 50 and 75% of the buyers who purchase in the city are doing so for the first time. 2023 was ranked as one of the toughest years for these buyers by the First-Time Homebuyer Affordability Index. But economists agree that conditions in 2024 are expected to improve. Second, we remain considerably, I showed you those numbers, considerably more affordable than other counties in the region. Although interest rates are predicted to continue their slow descent toward 5% this year, budget-constrained buyers are still going to benefit from our lower price points. Third, according to Freddie Mac, millennials, those millennials that we used to hear so much about, they're finally entering their peak home buying years. That means that in 2024, we will have more people near the typical first-time home buyer age than at any time in the past 15 years. This bodes especially well for Baltimore City, where the consumer market for housing is made up primarily of younger singles and couples, and again, where we serve as the first-time buyer market for the region. And finally, existing home sales will likely remain depressed thanks to record low interest rates that are locking in owners. I know I have some of those record low interest rates, and I'm not selling anytime soon. However, inventory in the city should continue to open up thanks to developments that we have already in the pipeline and thanks to the city's focus on pushing forward the renovation of vacant properties. Given the housing shortage throughout the state, this should give Baltimore City a competitive advantage in attracting buyers. So, leaving us on this high note, let's transition into a discussion about the future of West Baltimore. As we've just seen in our market data, there is significant growth happening on the west side of Charles Street, where our neighborhoods are outpacing many other areas. And so for this reason, it is my pleasure to introduce a group of panelists who are working to ensure the continued strength of our markets on the west side by helping to improve neighborhoods' livability. So please join me in welcoming Tib Regan, CEO of Whiting Turner, Kate Sylvester, Deputy Administrator and Chief Program Delivery Officer at the Maryland Transit Administration, and Chad Williams, Executive Director of West North Avenue Development Authority. Thank you so much for being here. So while they get settled, a quick programming note. I'm so sorry. I know we just pretended that the pandemic didn't happen, but it did happen. And Will Beckford had to cancel, and I'm sure you can all imagine why. So I'm sorry for that. But again, while they're getting settled, just a couple housekeeping notes. There's a couple of items included in the materials on your chair. First, we're going to get to the meat of our conversation by allowing our panelists to skip giving their bios. So thank you to Chad for this suggestion. There is a sheet with QR codes where you can read more about each of our panelists and their projects on your chair. So if you'd like to scan those, and especially if you'd like to learn more about what Chicago Trend is doing at Edmondson Village, you can go ahead and scan those and read a little bit more. Also on your chair, you have question cards, which we are going to use for the question and answer portion of today's discussion. So if you have a question, please jot it down. One of our friendly Live Baltimore team members will come and collect that if you just wave it in the air. And they're going to collect those and bring those up to me, and we'll use those at the end of our time. All right? So welcome again to our panelists. Thank you guys so much for being here. Does everybody's microphone work? Let's make sure we're all set.
Check.
Check.
Hello.
Hello.
Yep.
Excellent. Oh, I'm so excited for this conversation. So all of you guys have some, I can put my clicker down, thank goodness. All of you guys have some really exciting information to share with us today. And I'm gonna start with Tim. Tim, we wanna hear about Mondawmin. Do you ever get tired of talking about Mondawmin, Tim?
Never.
Okay, well, I'm very glad. So I remember very, very well back in 2017 when the news came out that Target was going to close its Mondawmin location. I remember feeling personally devastated as a city resident, and I remember feeling devastated on behalf of all of the residents of the Mondawmin community. And I'm sure everybody here in the audience remembers that. But maybe everybody here is not as familiar with what's happened since. So if you could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Mondawmin, what's happening at that Target site? I'd love to hear a little bit about your history there and what your plans look like at the village.
Thank you, Annie. Happy to. Thanks for the invite, by the way. So, what do they say? Better to be lucky than good. So this is the better to be lucky than good story. So after the unrest following Freddie Gray's funeral, a really good friend of mine, Calvin Butler, who was then CEO of BGE and is now CEO of Exelon, we got together and just were determined to do something different, to try to lift up some communities that in Baltimore that have been underserved for, well, generations. And even though Calvin's not a Baltimore guy, he's a St. Louis guy, and I am a Baltimore guy. And by the way, I get a hall pass to come to the west side because I'm a Northeast Baltimore guy, okay? And so I appreciate that. But we founded Touchpoint Baltimore in 2016. And the premise was that we wanted to create a place where people could come together and do real serious mixing of social capital and try to lift up everybody who comes to Touchpoint. And we bonded very closely with the community of Mondawmin, which, if you don't know, it has 8 individual neighborhoods that surround the area. And so that's why I say we're lucky. We've been in the community since 2016. We have our nonprofit partners. In case you don't know, we have the Touchpoint facility right at the mall, right next to the Shoppers Food. And we have our nonprofit partners of Thread and Baltimore Core, and then we collaborate even with Center for Urban Families down the street. And so that's where we've been. And so when the Target closed, Annie, we already had however many years in where we were known by the community, we had been connected, we had helped solve problems. And so at that point, I really, for a couple of years, wondered, well, what could happen there? Now, I'm not a developer, by the way, so I'm an amateur at this, and this is new for me. But after a while, I thought something good needs to come from that. And I was able to get in touch with Target, and there's a longer story for another day, but they did work very hard with us to get us the property at a reasonable price so that we could do a really important community-facing development that is called the Village at Mondawmin. Now we're making great progress on that. You may have noticed yesterday that we had an announcement that Care First Blue Cross Blue Shield is bringing in 120 jobs and a call center, training center. Yeah, thank you. Yes. So that follows the program of all-inclusive care for the elderly, which is already built out and will open up in April for seniors in the community. And there are various other uses that will fill that up. So our hope is that the village will be a spark to really kind of unleash the economic potential that is in not just Mondawmin, but in West Baltimore in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. And I don't know how many folks here have been over there, but if you get over there, you can already see the transformation in progress. One of my favorite parts of the site right now is some of the outdoor area. So could you tell us a little bit about maybe the site plan and your vision for the site? And I was going to ask you about tenants as well. So maybe what you envision for that tenant mix around the property.
Yeah, sure. So afterwards, you can get all the more accurate information from Joe Credit. Raise your hand, Joe. There he is right there. So I mentioned, well, first of all, in general, a Target box is 127,000 square feet. And that one happens to sit on 8.6 acres of ground. So we ripped off the front 60 feet of the building or so and completely rebuilt the front into kind of a little mini town center. And it will have 6 or 8 retail businesses across there, hopefully all locally owned entrepreneurs, food, coffee shops, what have you, across the front. There is a beautiful plaza there. Sorry, we couldn't put real grass. It is AstroTurf, sorry.
It looks great.
And it's going to be a great gathering place, sort of a little bit of a town square with tables and chairs for people to come and hang out and have a cup of coffee or such. So, but beyond that retail row are the big users. I already mentioned Pace, which is called the Eden Bridge, and Care First. But in addition to that, we're working very hard to get a primary care health access facility there from one of our local institutions. This is going to happen. These neighborhoods in West Baltimore are going to have direct access to a family primary care doctor. In some cases, being able to walk to the office, which is fantastic, right? Beyond that, the Touchpoint facility will move out of its current location on the other side of the mall. We currently have 8,000 square feet. The new facility will have 25,000 square feet. And so Thread and Baltimore Core, Whiting Turner, BGE will be able to expand our activities in the new Touchpoint. Whiting Turner will have a midtown office there of about 9,000 square feet. And then the last significant piece remaining is what we hope will be a childcare operation, which will be on the backside, right over here facing Coppin State. It's going to be great because it's going to have an outdoor playground and a lot of south-facing sun and what have you. Those are the big uses. And with Care First signing up, we really feel like we're kind of over the hump. We have a couple little things we need to fill in, and we do need to fill up the retail row, which we're happy to talk to people about. We have purposely kind of sat back on the retail row while we figure out how many people we have in the building, which is going to be 350 to 400 people walking in that building every day. So if anybody has a sandwich shop, that's a lot of sandwiches.
That's a lot of sandwiches. That's a lot of sandwiches. That's amazing. And I know I'm always really pleased when I hear that a developer is taking space in their own project to really, commit and to be there with the community. And so speaking of the community, Tim, I know you're closely connected to the residents of Mondawmin and the leaders in Mondawmin. Could you talk a little bit about how you've worked with the community on this project and how this new vision for Mondawmin is going to serve existing residents and serve them well, and how it's also going to help to serve new residents who might discover the community, maybe thanks to this project?
Sure. It's my privilege to be very close with all the community leaders. There is an umbrella organization, for those that don't know, called the Greater Mondawmin Coordinating Council. When we first came, Jackie Caldwell was the president, and then she termed out, and for a number of years now, Adeline Hutchinson has been president and is today. We know all of the other leaders who have been in place for a long time, like Mr. Brooks and Pastor Lance and Sheena Ham and Donna Cypress, and it just goes on and on, everybody around the community. And so we've worked with them all for a long, long time. So when this came up, when I was able to convince my wife to that we should buy an empty Target store, which was an interesting conversation.
As you do. Yeah.
But she said, sure, let's do this. So then we announced it. I surprised the community one day by telling them it was happening the next day. And there were tears in the room. There literally were tears in the room. And over the ensuing few months, we had a number of meetings where we would be in there in Touchpoint for hours, and we had a lot of food, and we would fill up whiteboards with ideas on what could happen at the village. And I joked with Adeline and the others. I said, you know, we've programmed enough space for at least 3 regional malls here. And they realized that, and they knew we were going to have to cherry pick certain things that would fit into, you know, pretty modest sized building. But they were very focused on healthcare. They were focused on workforce development, childcare. They certainly love the Touchpoint space, and they were looking forward to that growing. But they wanted a vibrant retail space as well. They wanted a place where you could, you know, go in the morning for a cup of coffee or lunch for a sandwich, whatever, and really be comfortable. And so we really have been trying to check as many boxes as we could along the way.
Yeah. So I think we can all clearly imagine how this is going to be transformative for the Mondawmin community. How do you think this is going to impact West Baltimore, really the whole of West Baltimore and Baltimore in general? It's a big question.
Well, I appreciate you thinking I know the answer to that, but I definitely do not.
How would you like it to?
Well, okay, that's fair. I mean, I'm a project guy. I'm not a developer. I know how to pour concrete. I know how to set steel. I know how to solve problems on construction sites. These are your experts on big time policy decisions and let's say widespread development. But my hope is to just spark excitement in the community in West Baltimore, and get people to look at the maps, Annie, that you've had up here this morning and say, wow, that is coming back, and coming back in a big way. And we need to be a part of that, you know, whether it's bringing a business or, you know, buying a home, right? You know, we're very focused on particularly older residents being able to maybe move to a different home on the block, right? Kind of upgrade or maybe buy a home when they've been longtime renters, right? And so my hope is that the village 10 years from now is invisible beyond just the fray of activity, both commercial and residential activity that is going on. And maybe somebody will say, hey, remember way back when that little village project got started over there? That was part of the beginning. That's my hope.
Oh, that was such a great answer. So inspiring. And I think we should stay on Mondawmin for just a little bit longer. And so, Kate, I would love to ask you about the existing infrastructure at Mondawmin. You and I were prepping for today, and we were both talking about there is actually a lot of existing transit infrastructure on the west side of Baltimore, everybody. And a lot of that comes together at Mondawmin. So if you could you just describe to everybody who might not be familiar what transit infrastructure is currently at Mondawmin, and is it heavily used?
Yeah, I'm so pleased to be part of this conversation. Thank you for the question, and great to hear about what's going on with your project at Mondawmin. It's very exciting. So transit is such an important part of the success of cities, and when transit is working well, it's fairly invisible. People don't talk about it when it's working well. When we make the news, it's usually because something's not going well. And it's been a tough couple of years in transit. We've had a really, the pandemic that we're pretending didn't exist hit transit pretty hard. But we really are coming back. Our workforce is nearly entirely back at this point. We have a strong commitment from the governor that's helping us get the resources we need to get transit back to where the city needs it to be. At Mondawmin, we have the Baltimore Metro. Baltimore is one of a small number of cities that has a heavy rail metro system. We only have one line from Owings Mills across through downtown to Johns Hopkins Hospital. But Mondawmin sits right in the middle of that line. So 8 to 15 minute frequencies, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can get to Owings Mills in 15 minutes. You can get past downtown to Hopkins Hospital in 15 minutes from Mondawmin. It's one of our largest regional transit centers. We have, I think, 11 bus routes that serve, and we have a bus loop there. So the transit system that's accessible at Mondawmin provides access to 600,000 jobs in the region, to every major hospital in the region, connecting services to commuter services throughout the state and to Washington, D.C. We also have Zipcar. We have a partnership with Zipcar, so you can grab a Zipcar there. There's bike parking, and there's commuter parking there as well, and pedestrian connections to the region. So it's an incredible asset there at Mondawmin, and we're really looking to invest alongside of other things happening in the area to make it even stronger.
Yeah, I mean, you hear all of that, and you hear the statistics, and you think, why aren't more people flocking to and investing in Mondawmin? But you are making some investments in Mondawmin. So for anybody who wants to hear about improvements, what are some of the improvements that we can expect to see at that site coming soon?
Yeah, so we've been very successful with receiving grants from USDOT. The infrastructure bill has provided some great opportunities. So we received last year a grant for investments at Mondawmin. It's a $33 million project. It includes safety improvements to 9 intersections around the transit center, pedestrian improvements that'll make it more comfortable and safer to access the area that you were describing, as well as Frederick Douglass High School. At the transit center itself, there'll be improvements in digital signage, real-time information, amenities like trash receptacles, benches, bike infrastructure, those sorts of things. There's a customer information kiosk where we have customer service agents. They'll get an entirely new kiosk for those folks, and that has some facilities for the MTA police as well. We'll repave the entire bus loop and improve the grading of that. There's some sustainability improvements with bioretention facilities. There's really cool technology called wayside energy storage, where we can use the momentum of the trains coming into the station and store that energy and reapply it to the energy needs of the station. So multifaceted project, really exciting, and we'll be taking the concepts for that out to discuss with the communities this summer, moving quickly into the design process, and then we'll be seeing construction in the next few years.
Incredible. And I'm so glad that everybody here is hearing about that. So That is one of the major projects that you're working on, but it's not the only place where investment is happening in transit on the west side. So if we could, can we just travel south a little bit and talk about one of my favorite topics, which is the West Baltimore MARC station? I know that that's Amtrak's project and that you're a collaborator, but maybe you could give everybody a little bit of information about what's happening at West Baltimore MARC and how that's about to be an even easier way to get to DC.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. So we have, as you mentioned, a number of major transit investments happening on the west side. And we're partnered with Amtrak on their project to replace the B&P tunnel with the new Frederick Douglass tunnel for commuter rail and passenger railroad. This is over a $6 billion investment coming to Baltimore. It is 10 to 15 years of sustained job investment. They have a $50 million community investment fund, as Chad well knows, and we need to deploy that well in partnership with them. And this investment in the overall program provides more capacity for rail service throughout our region and faster rail connections. So where right now our MARC trains are traveling 30 miles an hour coming into Penn Station, that's going to be increased to up to 110 miles an hour. So the speed of that rail connection is really transformative for where we'll be able to access with our rail system here. So what we think of, to your question of West Baltimore MARC, what we at MTA think of as the centerpiece of that program is West Baltimore Station. West Baltimore Station is not ADA accessible today. We sit here over 30 years after the passage of the ADA law, and it's not accessible to people who have mobility challenges. So we'll get an entirely new station as part of that tunnel program. The new station will be fully accessible, of course, with ramps and elevators. It also has fully integrated canopies, so people have more weather protection, waiting areas, restrooms at the station area. And we're really thinking of that as, how do we build this into a multimodal transit hub? It is today. There's I think it's 8 bus routes that serve the station, and we have a bus transfer facility there. Of course, MARC Rail coming through. But in the future, we're looking ahead to also having a red line station there, so providing that east-west connection through the city. And there's tremendous opportunity for transit-oriented development around the station. So we're working very closely with our partners at Baltimore City DOT and Baltimore City Planning to start to lay the groundwork and think about how we collectively start to move those projects as we see that the construction funding is in place for this investment in West Baltimore Station, and we see the commitment to making the red line a reality, really looking to bring all of those different pieces together to a top-notch regional transit center there at West Baltimore.
It's really exciting and long overdue and incredible. And I'm going to go on record and pitch an idea that I've been trying to tell anyone who would listen for years. With those improvements to the station, I think that we can rebrand the highway to nowhere as the highway to everywhere, because you can travel to that station and you can go just about anywhere that you want to go from that spot. So really excited about the future of the highway to everywhere. Okay, so just finally, if we can just travel back up north to North Avenue, Kate. We have a really important metro stop also on North Avenue, and I know we have a new quick bus line there. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening with transit on North Avenue?
Yeah, so North Avenue is, I think, a bit of the guinea pig, a bit of a model in a way. So North Avenue, we received a similar grant to what we have coming at Mondawmin a few years ago for the North Avenue Rising project. It was a little bit smaller than the investment that we have at Mondawmin, but in 2022, we completed the red painted bus lanes along North Avenue. There's significant repaving, new sidewalks, new pedestrian lighting, improved bus stops, improved curb ramps for ADA accessibility. And as part of that project, there were some improvements to the Penn North Metro Station. We made elevator improvements. There's a beautiful mural by a local artist. If you haven't seen it, definitely make a point to check it out. Improvements to the head house. So we've made so that project is complete now. We're monitoring the improvements that we're seeing from it, and we're seeing what we hope to see. It's a little tricky with the data with the pandemic there in the middle, and I don't know if folks remember.
Just take it out and just rebase it.
There was also a sinkhole on North Avenue that made it a little tricky for us to run buses, but we persevere, right? In Baltimore, we persevere. But we're seeing faster transit travel times, we're seeing improved on-time performance, and we're seeing ridership increases. So we're seeing the benefits of that transit investment. And what I'm so excited about with the investments in North Avenue Rising is the continued commitment to create Chad's organization, which I'll talk about in a moment, but the West North Avenue Development Authority to bring additional investment in community development and in the additional revitalization and jobs that the communities want to see, to take advantage, to build on the excitement and the success that we've had with the infrastructure investment. That's a good start, but it's not going to get us all the way there. That sustained community investment really has the opportunity, I think, to be transformative and to bring the resources and the investment that we all want to see continue and be sustained there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that segue. Look, see what we did here? See how we've planned this out? Just a reminder, write down any questions that you might have and wave them in the air, and our staff will come grab them from you. Chad, that was a great segue to you, and we would love if you would tell us a little bit about your organization first. I know I said no bios, but I think people here need to know about what is the West North Avenue Development Authority, also known as WNADA. What is it, and what are you doing over there?
First of all, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So has anybody heard of the West North Avenue Development Authority? All right, great. I don't need to talk about it. So the West North Avenue Development Authority is a relatively new state economic development agency. It was created by State Senator Antonio Hayes with the support of Delegate Ambry. And we have 5 distinct missions that were kind of codified out of the Office of the Attorney General. One is to create a comprehensive plan for West North Avenue. And this is for the 16 neighborhoods that are contiguous to West North Avenue. So that could be from Reservoir Hill all the way down to Rosemont. The second is to provide a clearinghouse of resources for developers that want to invest along West North Avenue. And our policy analyst, Christy Turner, has done a great job in doing that, and we'll eventually put that in a database and on our website so developers can sort through all of the available resources that the state and the city, and along with our authority, can provide to help with housing, community, and economic development and green space development. Second is to monitor the state and the city to make sure that development is done efficiently, effectively along West North Avenue, as Justin blinks at me. And then the next one is to provide advice and counsel to the state and the city about development. And the last one, which everybody's excited about, is to initiate and fund development along West North Avenue for economic development, housing, transportation, neighborhood development, and green space. Last year, Governor Moore provided our agency with $11.4 million. $10 million of that dollars is for grants and funds. We actually did our RFQ our first RFQ grant application this past December. We're going through 68 applications, I believe, to provide funding. And this year, along with investments in CORE and Bernie and a 50% increase for our agency, now at $16 million, that's a collective increase from the governor's office of approximately 325% being invested in Baltimore City. And so that's what the West North Avenue Development Authority is. We have a board that has who and everybody that deals with housing and economic development on the state and city side. Also, I'm required to report to the chairs of both the House and state side around economic development and the governor's office. So I have a lot of bosses, but Yes, it gets very complicated. But that's the West North Avenue Development Authority.
Amazing. Well, I was going to say, you're funded by the state. Should we be worried about you? But it sounds like the governor's taking good care of you. So I'm
We're pretty cool.
You're pretty cool. All right, good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, because this is a real estate focused event and a residential real estate focused event, I think this group would probably love to hear about what you guys have going with regard to housing, maybe the partner.
Yeah,
that
so I'm going to talk about our focus areas that we have for FY25, and then I'll talk about some specifics around housing. So this fiscal year, we decided to focus on 6 target development areas. One is the 27 and 2900 block of West North Avenue, and if you're familiar with that area, about 90% of the single-family homes in that area are vacant, blighted, abandoned. And so we thought that as a gateway to help Baltimore DHCD. Alice Kennedy, I think, is doing a great job. If no one else said it, I said it from the state, so it makes it official. The next is that we will be redeveloping Walbrook Mill. Actually, we will be entering into a partnership with OpenWorks to set up an OpenWorks West, similar to what's on East Baltimore at the Walbrook Mill. And then our offices will be going into the historic old B&O office railroad building, and then teaming up with hopefully a Black female restaurant entrepreneur and having a restaurant at the lower level. So imagine a state office actually on West North Avenue. I'm sure many of y'all probably could never imagine that. Next, I'll be working with Coppin State University and Live Baltimore to set up what we call the Live Near Your Work, Live Near Your School program. 3-block radius across from the Science and Technology building. We also focused around the block of the Image Center and looking at as an economic entrepreneurs area. And then a corner of West North Avenue in McCullen, where everybody knows where the old car wash used to be. We actually granted the city $350,000 to acquire that. And then to help with the development of housing, Mayor's Office of Employment is going to be having an office there at Reservoir Square. We're providing resources for that abandoned site right next to it at 600 block West North Avenue. And so those are the investments that we did with our RQ. We'll be making those awards and funding hopefully by the end of February and March. But one thing I'm really excited about, the resources that we have going into FY25, is that we want to be, as my boss says, the governor, and I've taken it on now. He's starting to talk about it. But we're the venture capital agency for the state in West Baltimore. Our general obligation funds are only restricted by our staff's imagination. And I think that's very unique. And if you think about the trust that the state is giving a small agency to say, here's some money, and you figure out how you want to do it, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. And so we want to, just be bold. And one of the things we want to do, we want to experiment with a lease-to-own program in Mondawmin area to support neighborhood housing services of Baltimore. They've done fantastic work in Panway neighborhood, and I know Dan is going to be moving into that area. And so to support that, we're going to set aside $500,000 for that program. And then also to stabilize our residents in the Coppin Heights area that are close to Coppin State University. As we know, as development goes in the areas, we see people that want to either sell their homes because their homes are not keeping up with the standard and code, and providing $500,000 to see how we can stabilize legacy residents to be in that area. And so if you're realtors, I think, check our website. We'll put those boundaries up, but I think those are great initiatives to help stabilize and move forward and bring us up in the top 10 on the next report.
Yes. Well, we're very excited to partner with you and with Coppin on the Live Near Your Work program. Last year's panel at this event featured folks from MCB talking about Reservoir Square. So we're going to have 120 brand new townhomes still coming, everybody. 120 brand new townhomes coming on North Avenue. You're doing all of the renovation of vacant properties along North Avenue. I just talked about we have an inventory problem in the state. We're making inventory available, even if it's not in existing home sales. So this is a really big deal. If you could transition just a little bit from residential and give us some more details about maybe some of the commercial projects. Tell folks what the Image Center is in case they don't know, and then maybe if you could talk a little bit more about the Mill project, that would be really great.
Yeah, so is anybody familiar with the Image Center? Great, I can talk about that a little bit more. So the Image Center was built by Rashid Aziz, Citywide Youth Development. He took this really ragged piece of property on West North Avenue at the corner of Smallwood and transformed it into a light manufacturing facility. And so they manufacture and actually, tailor the clothes for a lot of the high schools here in Baltimore. They train students on light manufacturing of clothes, wares. He has a phase 2 project where he'll be doing, is anybody a gamer? I'm a gamer, so I play PlayStation. But he's gonna have a gaming studio, podcasts, other activities that stimulate children in the high school age around STEM programs, and actually that whole block. He also has, not an ice cream, but a sorbet factory also. But you should definitely tour that. It's what I would call the essence of our slogan, Made in Baltimore. It really is a light manufacturing industry right there in West Baltimore. As far as the Walbrook Mill site, I think the excitement of having Open Works come to West Baltimore, where people have a maker space where they can create whatever they want, widgets, sell those widgets, clothes, a chair, a table, 3D printing. And then when they are able to elevate out of Open Works from the cubicles that they're renting, then we can provide them the opportunity to infill some of those vacant commercial spots along West North Avenue with the money to acquire that building, provide them the equipment, the facilities, residential units at top, and to be able to sell their wares right there at the lower level. And so that will be a slow, transformative process. Celeste Jefferson, our economic development officer, we met with the city yesterday, and I think I was convinced now to see if we can squeeze in a communal industrial kitchen right there in Walbrook Mill. We have a lot of restaurant entrepreneurs and people who sell food, and they just need that central kitchen where they can share and produce their food goodies for us to taste and buy. And so I'm really excited about that. And then also, even though it's not on our site that we'll be building out, I believe next month or in 2 months, Dan, the food hall at Walbrook Mill Apartments will be opening up. They're going to have, there are 7 Black female restaurant entrepreneurs. We're providing $150,000 to cover some of the equipment, but there's going to be a stage, there's a bar. You'll be able to hang out on West North Avenue. So if you hear about the grand opening, definitely show up. But West North Avenue is going to be on the rise and up and coming. You won't recognize it in the next several years. That's fact.
I believe it. I know. We got claps for facts. Absolutely. All right. I know people have questions. Have we collected any questions? Oh, all right. Hold up your question cards if you have a question, and our team will come and grab them. If you haven't written down your question yet, now's a great chance to do that. Chad, as we're collecting questions, could you speak a little bit about how is West North Avenue important to the overall health of Baltimore City? For just a second. I mean, that's a big question.
I have to give a short answer on that. So as Senator Antonio Hayes says, I think West North Avenue is the second most transit corridor in the entire state. Let that sink in. The second most traveled corridor in the state of Maryland. The economic opportunity of folks that transit through this corridor is huge. We're in an area, unfortunately, where 61% within our particular target development area right now of the properties are vacant. We're talking about a state budget challenge. You know, we don't like to say crisis in our administration, but a challenge to be overcome with right investments and making right investments that regenerate tax revenue, stabilize families, allow them a place to live, work, and play within their communities is one avenue to us being the great state in the United States. And that's how important West North Avenue is to the state of Maryland.
Absolutely. Um, it's just so exciting, everything that you guys are sharing. And I have a number of questions. So, Kate, this question is for you, and it is, which neighborhoods are expected to increase their access to transit in the next 5 to 10 years based on the regional improvements that have been planned? We're talking about some of the neighborhoods that we already spoke about, but are there other places in the city where transit is going to become more accessible in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, I think how I want to answer that is that transit works as a network. So every improvement that we make improves the access across the board. And we find that when we do, the travel time, right? If we improve bus service, which we just did, I'll take this opportunity to plug it. So we brought a new bus service just this past August, the QuickLink 40, which is an express bus limited stop service from West Baltimore across through downtown to all the way to Essex. It saves 25 minutes of travel time for people traveling that whole route. Now, if I'm honest with you, there are not a lot of people who are traveling that entire length. There are not a lot of people who catch it up all the way at the West End and Westgate, all the way through West Baltimore downtown, across the East Side, and continue all the way to Essex. There may be a few, but most people are taking it for a shorter portion of that. Mm-hmm. But that speeded up trip that we're able to offer for people who are connecting to Metro, to light rail, walking to their final destination, catching another bus route to go someplace on the north side of the city or the south side of the city. It speeds up that trip and just brings into a more, makes it more possible for you to go, whether it's to a particular doctor's office that you're interested in, or kids getting to school a little faster and being able to get home in 35 minutes instead of 45 minutes, or doing something for recreation, going shopping, whatever it is, that time that we're able to give people back in their life really opens up opportunities, and that's what brings people to transit. That's some of what attracts people to sort of the city life and the opportunities that we have to take advantage of those systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would encourage folks who want to be using transit to consider moving to a neighborhood that has a metro line.
Absolutely.
Because we have a whole bunch of them going up through West Baltimore. So, Tim, this question is for you. It is from our friend Paul Brophy, who has been working with the Trend Corporation on some of their shopping center projects. And he wants to know a little bit more about the financing at Touchpoint. Is there a capital stack involved? Are there financing sources that you can point to? Or is this all being privately done?
Well, it's currently being privately done, but we're looking for financing, so see me after the meeting, please. And as far as capital stack goes, certainly interested in talking to investors who are excited about the project. So that is actually not done yet. So that's ahead of us. We're very optimistic. It's going to come together just fine. So happy to talk more about that.
Okay, very good. So Chad, I think that one of the things we hear often is anytime we start talking about good things that are happening in Baltimore and are going to happen in Baltimore, people raise questions about how are we addressing affordability concerns? How do you answer that question when you get it?
Venture capital investment from the state. And so our plan is really simple. We, last year, Senator Antonio Hayes, along with his colleagues in the state assembly, passed I forgot the legislation, but the appraisal gap.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's $10 million last year, 10 million this year that's being proposed. And basically what that does is obviously just say acquiring a house and then try and rehab it and then sell it, you're probably going to break even in certain parts of the city. And as a result of that, the state has allowed a $10 million fund, unfortunately across the state, not focused the way we had preferred in Baltimore City where it's needed, where you can get that gap covered. However, one of the things we done working with individuals like Charm City, Victor, I can't always forget Victor's last name, but other small minority developers, is that we had figured out to make sure that properties are affordable in our particular target area, that at a minimum, we're going to need provide a subsidy of $25,000 to $50,000 for acquisition and rehab, and then another $25,000 to $50,000 in down payment assistance. Now, when you add that up, whatever slice way you want to do it, it's about $100,000 subsidy for a house, and that's how we are going to make that affordable.
Yeah. And I want to plug our Buy Back the Block program. So one way to ensure that residents can stay in their communities is by purchasing a home. So homeowners have many protections in the state once they own their home against rising values. We have a Buy Back the Block program, which will give you up to $20,000 grant funds to purchase a home in a neighborhood where you're renting, and Mondawmin is one of those communities. So we would love to see that used. Tim, you talk to residents in Mondawmin a lot, and you mentioned some of the older residents. And there's a question about how we can address the needs of community members that are 55 or better. What do you hear? Is there anything that you hear from your community about what they're looking for? You mentioned housing, maybe them moving within the community. And it doesn't have to be something that you're doing, but what have you heard in some of your community meetings about what some of those residents might be looking for?
So does this mean I'm an expert on 55 and over?
I was going to say you were an expert on gaming. You're an expert on it, on everything.
We do talk a lot with the seniors. Actually, quite a few of the seniors are leaders in the community, which
Right.
is fun. And so we've gotten to know a lot of people. So some of the issues they're focused on, healthcare, of course. And, I don't think anyone in the Mondawmin region has any idea of what the program of all-inclusive care for the elderly is, the PACE program that is already built at the village. It is a stunning 13,000 square foot facility that provides an array of healthcare services to seniors who get once they sign up through Medicare and Medicaid, they get a ride to the facility any morning they want. They get primary care, they get physical therapy, occupational therapy, just socialization, all kinds of things. And then if during the day they need to go to Maryland or to Hopkins, they get a ride there for specialty care. And then when they come back to PACE at the end of the day, they hop on a shuttle bus and go home. It's all about aging in place. And so that is an asset that is already here in West Baltimore. Again, not open yet, but it'll be open in a couple months. And I don't think anyone realizes how gorgeous that's going to be. So a couple of our team members are over against the window. You got Kirk Hemphill. Kirk, raise your hand. And Janae Chase. Okay, Kirk actually built the village at Mondawmin. 24-year Whiting Turner veteran, Morgan State civil engineer. So he can tell you all about PACE. He can give you a tour of PACE if you would like to see it. But there are other things. I think the seniors that I know anyway, they're very much looking forward to the village opening for a place to socialize. A place to come out and maybe do a little bit of walking around the sidewalks around the village and around the mall, and maybe sit and chat and, as I say, have a cup of coffee or lunch or what have you. So those are some issues. The GMCC, Greater Mondawmin Coordinating Council, is very organized, and they already give access to their seniors to all kinds of grant programs for help on their houses or transportation, healthcare issues. So a lot of that is in place already. We're just hoping that the village will reinforce that by giving the neighborhood sort of a town square.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to close us out on one last question for each of you, so you can each think about it. Chad, I'm looking at you, so I'm going to go to you first. I just want you to help us imagine. Imagine that it's 10 years from now, and we've all come back here. What do we see? What does this part of town look like for all of you? You know, how did we get here, Kate? What if we passed on our commute in? Maybe we live across the street. I don't know. What is your vision for what this is going to be in 10 years?
Yeah, that's pretty easy since we have a vision statement. But at the authority, we envision a community where you have a live, work, play area, a light manufacturing tourist industry where you can walk up and down West North Avenue and purchase a variety of wares, a green space that is revitalized, reforestation, trees, planting. I think if we had a snapshot, I think it's about bringing back West North Avenue to what it should be. I know that's an awkward statement, but if you think about what it should be, and that would be my vision for people to just live, work, play, and be happy. So I do have this one statement. I'm gonna leave y'all with this one statement. Let me find it, but it's somewhere here. Here you go. So I read this when the governor came out last June to award us the $11 million. And it's a statement, since I rarely do these events, as Annie and Teresa, my public affairs officer, know, so I probably won't do another one of these until next year. But my statement is anybody familiar with the rapper King Los from West Baltimore? Oh, got a few rapper connoisseurs. So this is, I extracted this out of one of his raps. It never comes to fruition unless the vision is crafted. Progress is positive, pessimism is backwards. Since failure ain't attractive, my next decision was drastic. And we in Baltimore need to make drastic, bold, change decisions here. You know, and so we recently lost Baltimore native Charles Gross, who was a CBS anchor, and he had a book out about defending Baltimore. So be bold, make drastic decisions, and defend Baltimore. I'll leave it like that.
Love it. Kate.
I feel so unprepared
You're
without
okay.
a
You got
musical
this.
quote ready.
You got this.
Thanks, Chad.
All right.
She's on our board.
Being shown up. So I think, you know, when I think about what we're going to see here 10 years from now, a lot of these things that we just talked about are going to be done. I feel like there's like a certainty to it that we haven't had before. The new West Baltimore station is going to be here. The investments that you're talking about on West North Avenue, those things are tangible, they're real. We're not still going to be talking about them coming down the pike. The new Mondawmin is going to be a town center, right? It's going to be a community center. I hope and pray that the red line is going to be under construction, and that when we walk around, we see the progress happening on that in the ground, because I think that's also going to be incredible for the whole city. And what I think we're all building toward, and what we're seeing happening and unfolding, is making this West Side area a place that has everything that we need, right? That you don't have to go out to the suburbs or down to downtown or the east side to get your shopping done, to have a place to meet a friend for lunch, to get your clothes manufactured. I mean, that's next level. But all of the amenities and the things that anybody could want are right here in the community. And so you can get there by, you know, walking on a nice day, or hopping on a scooter if that's your thing, or taking the bus, or taking, you know, and 15-minute peak service, peak headways on the MARC train. So, in 30, 45 minutes, you can be down in DC telling them about all the great things that we're doing in Baltimore and all the successes that we've had here. That's tremendous as well. But for me, it's really about, there's just so many resources and assets right here in our community, right here on the West Side, that all of them coming together and being a place where you don't have to leave to get everything that you need. That this is the city life that everybody's looking for, whether they're in their 60s or 70s and they can meet with friends and neighbors, they can get all their healthcare needs met, get some fresh air, that sort of thing, or I don't know what comes after millennials and Gen Zs, like whoever the 20-somethings are 10 years from now, that it's also attractive to them, that this is an exciting, city living place. You can have a healthy lifestyle, you can meet friends, there's exciting nightlife and opportunities and everything. And we know we have the education that's going to be here that also attracts people. So that's what I'm hoping to see, and I think we will.
Tim, we'll finish where we started. What will this look like in 10 years?
Okay, so I mentioned that I'm an East Side guy. So does anybody know where Gardenville is on the at Bel Air Road in Moravia? Okay, so that's where I'm from. Okay, for East Side right here. Okay, I didn't know where the West Side was until I got on that 44 bus and went to Poly. Okay, I'm like, whoa, there's a whole different side of the city here. So. That's the cool thing about, I'm going to focus on Mondawmin. I'm going to be very parochial here, okay? So afterwards, come up and look at my jacket. We got the village logo on my jacket. The home in Mondawmin has a front porch on it. It's shorter than the Highlandtown home. It's only 2 stories. It's wider. It is downright stately, an absolutely stately townhome, right? So different from anywhere else in the city. And it's so cool. What we're going to see 10 years from now, you're going to see people winding through these neighborhoods saying, when is one of these houses going to come on the market? Because I want one of these houses. They are so cool, and people are going to be just so anxious to be a part of Mondawmin.
Yes. Well, what a good way to leave us. Thank you so much. I hope all of you are as inspired as I know I am. I want to thank our panelists again for giving their time this morning. I know you're all very busy. Thank you for coming to speak to this group. I want to thank all of you for your time and your attention. And I hope that you will do what this event is intended to help you do, which is go out and spread the word about what's coming to our neighborhoods, the strength of our markets that are already here, right? So please leave here today, be an ambassador. You're going to want to get one of those Mondawmin houses because people are going to be walking around soon asking when one's going to come on the market. So thank you again. Thank you to our panelists. If you haven't grabbed food, grab some on your way out. Thank you so much. And on behalf of Live Baltimore, this is it. State of the City Market. Thank you so much, everybody.